What's up, everyone? I'm here in my home theater. So those of you who are listening on the podcast can't see me, but I set the camera up for the first time in my really pieced together recording studio here because my desk hasn't shown up in HQ yet. And to be honest, by the time the desk shows up, I'm probably going to lose my studio because I just hired Chris Haynes. If you remember back to the 2-week vlog series where I lost the first weight loss challenge, I'm about to lose the second weight loss challenge to him. This one I actually put in a 50% effort. So, with the good news is I got quite a bit of a result out of this one. But I'm in my home theater here, so welcome into my house in my home theater. I've recorded quite a few podcasts in here. And Michelle's using the iMac where I have the mic boom and the setup in there. And my home theater sounds better anyway because I have the acoustic treatments everywhere. But what I'm going to attempt to do is eventually have video showing so that I can put this on the YouTube channel and then put it in podcast format, so that I want to have a system down to where eventually I want to create a Twitch channel and live stream, a regularly scheduled podcast. And I never thought about this in the past, but I think I can convince people to come to HQ now that I've seen how many people come now, and I could invite guests to come to HQ and shoot. Maybe someday I can get baller enough where I'll buy their darn plane ticket if I can convince them to come out and hang out and shoot some video, whether it's someone in the detailing industry or garage focus industry or not. I think I could convince people to come and sit down, and then let's say they're not in the industry, I could teach them how to wash a car, do some simple stuff, get that on video. Anyway, I got big ideas, big plans here. So if you're more of a podcast listener than a YouTube channel follower, I'd mention this, and I really can't talk or speak too much to it. But wealth management, I am no longer in that business. Part of it, my hand was forced, becoming a public figure. But man, could you imagine? Just think about yourself. Imagine you go crazy, right? And they put you on happy pills, and you meet with the psychiatrist, and the psychologist then tells you to go make some friends, and then you make a YouTube channel. You have a couple thousand people listening and following you, and then you meet some people meet a business coach, and you meet some people in it, and then Brian Orr convinces me, or actually Brian Orr has me at a mastermind and convinces me to start a podcast. Actually, the guys at the mastermind convinced me. I think Brian secretly was suggesting that I start a podcast. I started a podcast. Now I have 135,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think we have about 1 million downloads on the podcast, and I haven't even focused on it yet. Just wait. I'm gonna really focus on the podcast. The YouTube channel will always be the focus because that's what I really enjoy the most, and I'm suited well for. But I gotta figure out. I always end in a preposition. I'm not supposed to do that, but anyway, I think it's become more accepted in the English language. Anyway, I always ended in for or to or at. You're not, at least from my grade school grammar, you're not supposed to do that. Anyway, the podcast, I'm gonna dig deep and really I'm gonna try to make it something great. So I'm 60 days out from walking away from a 15-year career, but just imagine. So now my parents work for me. Just a few weeks ago, I was panicking that can I make this work? And now I've hired 3 people outside of my parents. It's exploding. The Obsessed Garage Consulting, I guess you could call it, the retail store, is really doing great. Of course, there's a risk that, we have an economic downturn and retail suffers, but I think I have enough ideas and I have enough things to support my lifestyle. I've cut back on some stuff. And then luckily, most of the things that cost me the most are the car stuff, which is financed via Obsessed Garage. I mean, stuff that now I need to have in order to do what it is I'm doing, right? So that's a good thing. But anyway, podcast is going to be a focus. I'm going to learn some audio editing software, and I'll probably actually, I just hired, or I guess intern hired, not really paying him, Bryce, who owns a company called Scrapped Media, where he does, some outside consulting. He happens to live here locally and has been following me since the beginning, or shortly after the beginning. And so I'm hoping he's excited. I'm sure he'll listen to this, but I'm hoping he's excited to become a part of it. And so I'm going to have him doing a lot of the editing and thumbnails and things like that. Jared, who has been a massive support to me and a massive contributor to Obsessed Garage. I think I missed my shot on him. He's too successful. He's started his own side hustle in addition to becoming a top 25 or so salesperson. I might be underselling. He might even be higher than that at Audi. And then I think he's doing something else. But we, for whatever reason, I couldn't get the stars to align. And then when I decided that Obsessed Garage was going to become my full-time gig, it just didn't line up, and he was going to have to take a massive pay cut to come here. So I'm super appreciative of what Jared's done, and he's up to his eyeballs building his future, and he's going to be massively successful. And hopefully someday I can make Obsessed Garage successful enough where I can headhunt him away from whatever he's making lots of money doing. So we'll see how that goes in the future. But I've hired, like I said, I've hired Chris Haynes to come in and really take some of the weight off of me so I can focus on this stuff. I get 400 to 500 emails a day. Some of them are very simple stuff like, where's my order? What connection do I need for my Mosmatic gun and a Sunjo? And I'm hopefully going to answer a lot of that stuff in the future here when I create packages for the basic systems. I'll have a whole nother podcast talking about that. It's extremely necessary for me to have a guy who's been beaten up a bit in life. Now Chris has been successful. He's been a teacher and has worked in several businesses in the past. But having Chris on board where he can hit the ground running, he's a mathematician. I've got inventory control, purchase order systems, keeping track of me and coordinating where I need to be and when I need to be there, so that I can go and what seems and feels like jerking around all day, messing around with cool stuff. He can keep me on track so that I can focus on what I'm doing here. This is the first time since 60 days ago that I've had the energy and not energy, but the time, and I've kind of gotten things caught up enough to be able to sit down here and record an hour long or however long I ramble here podcast. And again, I'm gonna let you in on all of this and the construction of Obsessed Garage. So anyway, that's the quick announcement. I would, let's just say someday I'm gonna write a book, and you're gonna want to read it. This is what I'm built for, right? It's what I'm born for. It's what my DNA is designed to do, is to do Obsessed Garage and to do it this way. And to do it my way, and to do it the way that I think that we as a group want to participate, right? So whether it's buying something from the store, it's coming to an event, it's coming to the future destination that I have in mind, I'll be cueing you into that. But man, I'm fired up. Like, I'm sure you can probably see it in me and hear it in my voice. I've lost 20 pounds or so. Getting legit again, and I'll be having, I might even record this today and launch it a little later, but I'm going to be doing another podcast on what I did and what I'm doing. I'm 220 now. I got down to about 215, but as soon as I ended up leaving the cleanse and onto the macro-based deficit, I probably gained 4 or 5 pounds in just water weight alone from introducing salt and things back into the diet. And so now I'm working up to, I have to get a base under me. I was planning on going to 2-a-days right off the bat. I think I'm going to do maybe a 2-week, just get myself back in. I've been in the gym, but I haven't been able to work out hard. So pushing really hard for 2 weeks on a single workout, and then I'm going to probably do a 30-day period where I do 2-a-days. I'd like to stay in this deficit, get down to 205 to 210. So lose another 10 to 15 pounds, and then maintain from there. So I've retired all of my XX shirts, and I'm not coming back. And you're gonna see the Maddie before Maddie went crazy, and I'm gonna put my best foot forward and not be such a fat slob like I was for a while. So thanks for sticking through me and not dismissing me on that. It's been a rough road the last few years of learning to deal with obsessive compulsive disorder and all of the stuff that's come with me putting myself out there. All right, so I'm going to have to get up every few minutes here, or every 15 or 20 minutes to restart the camera to see if I can make this all work. But anyway, let's get on task here and talk about the title of this video. I didn't mean it to clickbait it on you here, but I really did sell my S2000 for $65,000. I shipped it all the way across the country, and to be honest, I wasn't going to talk about it. I wasn't going to title the video to say I sold my S2000 for so much. I'm mainly doing that to stick it to the people that said I couldn't, and sell it for what it's worth, or what it was worth to me anyway. And I mean, I never even listed it for sale. I just made that one video where I said I'm thinking about selling it, and then somebody bought it. And the reason why I'm comfortable with talking about it is the dude kind of jerked me around a little bit, and then he didn't pay for he owes me some money for shipping all the parts across the country that he screwed up. And so screw it. I'm just going to tell you the story like it is, and whatever. So one of the questions I get all the time is, you take such good care of your cars. Why do you always end up trading them in? Right. And so this discussion is going to be about why I tend to trade cars, and this is my take on it. I'm sure some of you are really efficient at, or I guess you'd say proficient at selling cars. I think it's a little bit different. The way that you do this is different when you're talking about $65,000 cars instead of $6,500 cars. It's quite a bit different. Because you're not going to show up in a Walmart parking lot or at the DMV with $6,500, and you're showing up with $65,000, which you're not going to have or be able to get. And if you do get it, I can't do anything with it because the bank's going to go nutty over it. It's just not realistic. And so now you're dealing with wiring money and potential escrow, and it becomes much more complicated when you're not doing this through a dealer and you're doing it private party, right? But I didn't have much of a choice on the S2000 because I couldn't trade that car. It wasn't worth anything to a dealer. It was worth something to somebody who valued it, right? So let's back up a little bit. I bought the S2000 with the intention of building that dream car, the car that I've dreamt about, or putting all the parts on it that I dreamt about when I was 19 years old, when I first saw a new Formula Red 99 S2000 show up on the Villanova campus when I was I guess I would have been a freshman in college. Some kid got one. I was like, man, that thing looks awesome. I thought I was a little too big for it. And then my best friend Charles got one in late 2001. He got a yellow one. He got that car when I bought his 99 Civic Si, and so he bought a yellow AP1, and he let me drive it for a couple of days. I'm like, man, this thing is amazing. I still to this day don't think I've told him this, but the first time I went out in it, it was a little damp, and there was this. It was like a 100-degree turn, like a 110-degree banked turn, leaving the Villanova campus, heading toward Ardmore, where my house was, and I totally, the S2000 was a gosh darn a snap oversteer death trap. I don't think I'd ever even driven a rear-wheel drive car. And so the car, I come into the turn, and the thing snaps around on me. I luckily, I didn't know what counter steer was. I luckily didn't hit the curb, because if I would have hit the curb, I would have crunched the suspension. It would have been a disaster. So anyway, sorry to Charles. I don't think I've ever told him that, and I don't think he listens to this anyway, so I think we're safe. But anyway, the transmission was just magical. Like, this thing is amazing. And it's just, and for me, driving around in a B18, what's B18C1? What's the EM Civic have? Anyway, I don't want to speak unintelligently here, but no, B16, the B16, the B18 was the Type R motor, which I'd always dreamt of getting a long block B18C5, I think they were called, or maybe it was C1. But I always wanted to get a B18, put it in my S2000, because I thought that would be the ultimate NA. I was all about JDM, NA. Remember, this was Fast and the Furious, 1999, 2000, 2001. And that was culture. It was a much smaller car. Culture has massively expanded since then. It was much more niche, but that was the beginning of the explosion of the modern car culture that we know today. And so I drove Charles's S2000, and then my goal was to get an S2000. As a Honda guy, the Honda Progression, the next car was an S2000, even though it was too small. I had wanted to get a hard top and do that whole process, because I really wasn't into convertible. And so when I moved to Orlando and I graduated college, I got a new Formula Red 02 AP1 S2000. And then a few years later, 3 years later, I sold that. And then when I was getting married and we bought a house, and so I was going to get legit and let the whole car thing go. Well, that lasted about 8 months. From when I let it go, I got an RSX Type S that I didn't do a whole heck of a lot to. And then I went and got an AP2 2007 Silverstone S2000, and I didn't go crazy with that, because that was my transition period from working as a single dude, no real obligations, to now we had a house, and eventually we had a first child. So I got that in late 2007. We had Ryan in 2010. But I did a hardtop, Mugen exhaust, Bilstein coilovers, the front lip, and the standard S2000 stuff. But I didn't go crazy with it, because I didn't have the money. I'd left my $100,000 job, and went to Wall Street. Our Wall Street firm, became a financial advisor, and didn't make a lot for several years. And so that was my S2000 story. I put 135,000 miles on that. I drove from West Orlando all the way up here to where I live now, which was about 40 miles each way. And so I put tons and tons and tons of miles on that thing. And so that was a pretty long, arduous process, or in my car guy progression or evolution, and that I drove that far in that tiny little car. It was my only car for years, until I eventually got my E92 M3 in 2011. So, that's my S2000 story, but it goes back to the deep-rooted, I loved Honda, and that was kind of my thing, and my whole thought process was I would get all the cars that got away, and I've discussed this before on the podcast, talking about how, I was going to get all these cars and become, not a collector, but have a stable of those cars, the best cars, or what I deem to be the best cars. And I did that, and I hated every second of it, because it ended up being too much work, just for someone wound as tightly as me. And now with having two jobs, prior to me doing OG full time, man, it's just brutal to be able to attempt to do that, right? So I ended up with all these cars, because I thought that was the plan, right? To have all these cars that I wanted. And of course, the GT350 was what I thought the M3 should have been, when I got rid of the F80, because of the farting. So S2000 bought. So this I guess it would have been it was last year. So summertime of last year, I started searching for an S2000. Started searching for an E92 M3. I decided to get the S2000 first. It was going to be a lot less expensive. Obsessed Garage started to do well, and so I took some of the cash that I'd built up in Obsessed Garage, and I bought a $26,000 AP2. So it was a 2006 AP2 with it had 30,000 miles on it. And then I booked the appointment with LHT to go do the supercharger. So I was going to do Kraftwerk supercharger kit on it, and I already had the hardtop. I was going to have the hardtop repainted because it had kind of a wonky paint job. I was going to start the process of building the car, so I started ordering all the parts, the total exhaust, all the JDM dream stuff that I had ever dreamt of, plus whatever new modern stuff had become better. Hard race, different roll center adjusters, things like that. Spoon, rigid collar set, and then started to head down the path. What's this? We did Öhlins, so we did the Öhlins suspension, and then I did the evasive spec. 19 or 17 by 9.5 plus 50 offset, and did square setup, and I bought some Cup 2s for the thing and was doing it up, right? And so I went through the whole process of building what I was going to do to the car, and then that's when I booked the appointment with LHT, and then that's when John released the video of the black CR, and I decided, man, if I'm going to go this deep, let's do it. And so I bought that $40,000, 11,000 mile black CR. And the thing I found out later was that the guy who sold it to me has, I think, 3 or 4. And so he had tried to sell another black one prior, and it was modified with supercharger and brakes and all kinds of stuff. This car just had wheels, brakes, and suspension. So I was under the assumption that it was already supercharged before. John said it wasn't, but I thought maybe they were just kind of pulling the wool over. And it turns out this car wasn't. My buddy Alan Sales out in California, he said, yeah, that they told you that car wasn't supercharged, but it was. Well, turns out this dude had 2 black ones. He just didn't. He's super secretive and didn't tell anybody about it. I don't remember what the guy's name was, but he was, he's a hoarder of CRs. So anyway, this example of a car was pretty incredible, and I'm going to chop it up and put all the parts on it. And I think, again, I was about $35,000 into parts and labor, and that's me paying my labor rate, which is less because I'm bringing some form of an audience to the equation. I'll mention this. I never call up a place and say, hey, I'm a big deal. You should give me a discount. I generally call up and say, what can I do for you? I'd like to bring some value here. What do you think that's worth? And then I generally let them dictate what they're willing to give, what that's worth to them, and then we come up with some equal exchange, and it usually costs me less because hopefully I'm bringing some value there, right? So don't think that I show up and say, hey, John, you owe me a discount because I'm a big deal. That's just not the way that I do things. I'm generally very upfront and very matter of fact. And sometimes I'm probably undervalued more than overvalued, but it doesn't cost me as much to get labor done because of the investment that companies will make in doing the labor, so that we can do this and do more, and then hopefully benefit from from you guys that are listening, showing up and supporting the business. So we built the car. I spent $70,000-$80,000 on the thing when it's all said and done, and I hated it. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate the car, but it wasn't what I had remembered it. It was, I'd built it up more than it was, or it ended up being, in my head. I knew what the S2000 was, but it was something that I had experienced coming from an EM1 Civic and an O2 RSX, right? RSX, and it wasn't it wasn't a GT3. Like, I thought I could make it, right? I didn't realize this. I wasn't even thinking about it. I just knew I wanted the car, and I did this blind, okay, I've got the money, let's do it thing. This is part of the process. This is part of my car guy progression to go back and build that garage filled with all of these cars that got away. Because the only reason I sold any car I've ever sold was because I wanted the next car, and I couldn't do both, right? And so that's why this stuff happened. Otherwise, I would have just kept it, and probably eventually would have gotten rid of it, because I'm also not very good at just hanging on to things in case I might use it someday. That stuff weighs on me. Like, I have a bunch of 2X t-shirts that I should probably hang on to, because I'm sure I'll end up that size again. But maybe it's for the best to just, it would be for the best to hang on to them, but let's just ditch them. That's just the way it makes me feel good to do that kind of stuff. It's probably not the most intelligent financial decision to make, but I'm not a financial advisor anymore, so I can do whatever the heck I want, right? So, and sometimes it may be irresponsible, but I guess now I don't have to keep up perceptions anymore. I'm just kidding there. So, built the car, liked the car, didn't love the car. Didn't love the idea of maintaining so many cars. And so the GT350 went, when I got the Raptor, right? So I got rid of the GT350 and the Tahoe, kept the Gen 1 Raptor for Michelle. So I went from 5 cars down to 4 cars. And then, had the S2000, figure I need to keep a manual in my life. And so then, eventually realized that I would much rather drive the RS every day. And so went down from 4 cars to 3 cars. And this is before I'd even really considered changing or transitioning away from wealth management. That happened rather quickly. So it wasn't like I'm doing this because I needed the money. Luckily, it kind of made me feel a little better that I had an extra 65 G's in the bank. But that wasn't the reasoning behind the decision. Think what you want, but I tell you like it is. So I built the S2000. It was every part that I ever dreamt of, and it didn't let me down. It was great. It was a great car. It was, I think, the best example of what I intended to build, and it's ultimately it's a $35,000 car from 1999, and I have a $220,000 car from 2016, and I'm sitting in a 2018 Raptor with like modern tech and cooled seats and all the whole deal, and then I take my overweight 6'2" body and slink down in this tiny little car. And the steering wheel doesn't tilt and my head is touching the ceiling. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? And so I decided that, maybe it's probably best to sell it. Or at least consider it. And so that's when I made the YouTube video discussing it. And I really didn't have the time or energy to chase, selling the thing. But it seems that I do this all the time now, where I just put something, that I used to just throw away. I'll just throw it up on Instagram. Hey, $35 for some oil filters, and boom, gone in an instant. And so I said, I didn't put a price on it. I just said, hey, I'm considering. I made that video where I'm considering selling my S2000. Right, I'm thinking about selling it. Here's what I have into it. And of course, I've got naysayer after jerk off telling me they can't be done, and nobody buys aftermarket parts, and I get that. But if it's done right, and if somebody wants it, and I had 100 hours and just hanging out and sitting at places and travel back and forth to get this thing set up the way that it was, and so somebody may not want to do all that, and they just want the car. And who knows? Maybe they'll buy it, and if you're making $1.5 million a year and you wanted an S2000, and spending $65,000 doesn't really matter to you, right? You just buy it, and even if they bought it and drove it around and sold it for $30,000, that's not that big of a deal. It's a bigger deal for you or I, but not for everybody in this world, and so I try not to preclude myself from things, and just kind of threw it out there, right? And said, hey, if somebody wants it, then I'd probably sell it. And so a guy made me the offer, right? And I sold the thing. So it took me 32 minutes to get to the point where we're going to talk about what we're actually talking about here, which is the discussion of why I sold the car, why I tend to trade cars rather than sell private party. And again, this one didn't really have a choice because no dealer's going to take it on trade. Plus, I didn't want another car. I didn't want to trade it for something. So, you build the car, sold, put it out there, find a buyer. And so now the process works like this, right? Somebody has to take a risk, right? Somebody has to give up something, especially when you're dealing across the country. But let's just assume that you live in the same town, right? And so then let's just assume you're in the state of Florida, because I know the state of Florida well and how this process works. So we get the cars, all right? So I have the car and somebody has the money, right? And let's assume this is a cash transaction, not a loan. So I own the car outright. I have the title, right? Let's say this is a $10,000 car in the state of Florida. I have the title. I own the car. The other guy has the $10K in cash. So in a perfect world, again, we meet at the Walmart parking lot, or I guess in a perfect world, we meet at the DMV. I print up a bill of sale. The state of Florida has a bill of sale form. I print up the bill of sale. I fill it all out. I sign it. He signs it. I have a copy of it. He has a copy of it, right? So we have two copies. It doesn't have to be notarized. I'm sure it couldn't hurt to notarize it. And so we each have a copy. And then generally the dude asks you, hey, can we write in $3,000 instead of $10,000 so I could pay less tax? But whatever, I'm not going to discuss that. You know how that works. And I'm sure that happens often. A lot of times they'll pull up a blue book value of the car if you're trying to get over on them and get yourself in trouble that way. But anyway, you can do that, and I'm sure there's a large percent of people that do. So, I don't pay sales tax. I already paid sales tax, right? So, but the new person will have to when they register it. So at that moment, he gives me the $10,000. I count it on in the parking lot of the DMV. Okay, everything's good. I sign over the title. I put the mileage on it. We agree to it. I pull off the stub of the title. He doesn't need to sign that. I have that stub of the title, so I can send it or drop it off the DMV with the plate. All right, so we take the plate off the car, and so I take the stub and the plate, and I give it to mail it or give it to the DMV, so that now that plate isn't out there in the world, and it's expired, and now it's null and void, and I've released the liability. Once that happens, then I can call my insurance company and remove it from insurance, right? And then he takes the bill of sale and the bigger bulk of the title that I signed over to him. He walks in, he pays 6% sales tax and whatever the registration cost is, a couple $100. So he pays $600 in tax and $220 to register the car. They give him a temporary plate. He orders a new plate. Done deal, right? That's a done transaction. There's really no risk there because he gave you the cash, other than him pulling a gun on you and taking the car, right? But he gave you the cash. You gave him the title simultaneously. Bingo, bongo, everything's done. Nice, clean, and clear, right? That's the way that a used car or private party transaction should go, right? But it doesn't work that way when you're dealing with larger sums of money, right? And then you add in multiple states, and you add in shipping, right? It's a big frickin' pain in the rear. So let's just use my situation as an example. The guy's in Seattle, right? And couldn't be any further away from where I'm at in Florida. I guess I could be in the Keys, and he could be slightly in a little further northwest on the Canadian border there. I don't know what town's further than Seattle. Portland? No, Seattle is further north. But anyway, you get the idea. So he's about as far away as possible, right? I'm here. The car's $65,000, so we can't meet in a parking lot somewhere. We're dealing with two states, right? So one thing we came up with is a mutual friend of mine and his connected us. I talked to him about maybe being an escrow agent for us, right? So now I'm adding a third person in here to add more risk, but it's someone I trust, right? And so the intent was I would send the title to this person. The guy that's buying the car would wire the funds to this person. The person would confirm receipt of the cash, right? And then we would schedule shipping. Prior to the car shipping, my friend would then release the title to the gentleman with the car. He would release the funds to me, right, before I put the car on the trailer. Now the guy owns the car. I'm not liable for this, right? I'm going to maintain insurance, but he should get insurance set up on the car. Generally with insurance in most states, you're covered, right? So if you buy a car, you didn't call your insurance agent. I think it's 7 days in most states. Sometimes it's 3. So your car's covered, because you have the record showing, the bill of sale showing. So again, I didn't mention the bill of sale. So we fill out a Washington State bill of sale. The bulk portion of the title, I retain the stub of the title. I retain the plate, so I can send that to the DMV to release me, so that it's known, it's on public record that I sold the car. So he has the title that was signed over with the mileage, and I leave the, he says how much he wants me to write in on the thing. I maintain a copy of the bill of sale with the actual sale amount, right? He then he has a copy of that as well, and then it's up to him if he wants to create a fictitious number on the bill of sale. Then whatever. I tend to not do that. I just pay whatever it costs, but maybe I'm an idiot. I pay whatever the tax is. So now I have the money. He has the title. He has the bill of sale. He takes care of insurance. The shipper can now pick up the car, right? So the shipper's supposed to pick it up. I put it on the trailer. It's his car. I have the money. I'm out. So if the shipper jacks it up, not my fault. In this particular case, I had a pallet full of parts, right? The exhaust and the suspension and the brakes and all this stuff. And so we're supposed to put all this stuff on the truck. You'd call if you've dealt with auto transport, it's a pain in the rear. The good companies don't pick up the phone because you can't get them on the phone unless you had a relationship with them. And then the brokers that set you up with some goof company, they just never get it right. We had taken pictures and submitted, and then the guy shows up in the truck and says, well, I don't have any room for that. And I'm like, no, this is part of the deal. He calls dispatch. Dispatch says, well, we can pick the car up 2 weeks later, blah, 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 blah. But, so I ended up having to ship the pallet, and I paid for it. It cost me $1,400 or something like that. No, $1,800 to ship this stupid pallet all the way across the country. And no, yeah, I think it was $1,300. Yeah, $1,300. Ship this 600-pound pallet across the country, and the dude hasn't paid me. He's supposed to pay for it. We kind of negotiated this all out. I paid for half the shipping. He paid for the other half. And then this was, he said, just let me know what it is and I'll pay for it. And of course, that was a month ago or 2 months ago. I never heard squat. So screw that. I sold it for $65,000. So anyway, that's how the transaction's supposed to go. Right, now let me tell you how it actually went, and this is why I like trading in cars. Right, so we decided not to use the escrow agent because we'd scheduled it pretty quickly. Right, so I told him, look, we don't. He was amenable to this. I said, look, you know who I am. I'm on YouTube. I'm making videos of this stuff. The guy that that I know would vouch for me. The car's public. My reputation's worth more than trying to screw you out of something. The car's perfect. I just dropped it off LHT. They changed all the fluids. We'd put a new clutch in it. Everything's spent $2,000 on a new clutch. I don't know what the heck happened to the clutch, but anyway, the brand new clutch that I put in was no good, and we put a brand new clutch and flywheel in the thing. Cost me $1,800. Had to get it rush done, and the car's ready to go. So this is, so the shipping is supposed to be on like a Thursday, and this is like a Wednesday the previous week. And so he wires me the money. Right? I give him all the wire instructions, very specific. Here's where it needs to go. Here's the routing information. Here's the account number. Here's the address. Here's the phone number and everything. So he doesn't wire the money, he ACHs the money. Well, you can't ACH to a wire. The account number is different from an ACH profile. Well, he didn't know what ACH was. He said, I sent you the money. And so I'm waiting Tuesday or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I'm cool because they're not picking up the car till Thursday. And Wednesday, no money. Thursday, no money. Thursday, the guy calls me and says, well, I'm thinking about coming to get the car. I said, well, you're not coming to get the car because I don't have the money. So, and I'd already sent him the title. So I sent him the title on Wednesday. So somebody's at risk here at all times, right? He's sending me the money and he doesn't have the car. I'm sending him the title and I don't have the money. So somebody's always giving up something first in this transaction. Unless you're doing it in a Walmart parking lot, there's always risk there, right? And so the dude, so I finally call Chase and I say, look, what the heck's going on? He says he wires the money. I'm asking for a Fed reference number. There's a language barrier there. I don't know what the heck he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And so, we're still cool and everything's fine. He's just like, oh, man, I sent the money. I don't know what the heck's going on. And so my spidey senses are up at this point, right? They're already up to begin with this whole transaction, but now my spidey senses are tingling, right? And so I finally called Chase. I said, look, he says he wires the money. I don't have a Fed reference number. Every wire has a Fed reference number. Wires take, that day, within a few hours to post. If you do it before 2 p.m., it shows up in, that day within an hour. And so we finally do some tracking down and see that he sent an ACH to the wire account number, the wiring instructions, right? And that was rejected. And so they tried to get it to, so this is Thursday rolls around and then we're into Friday morning and they couldn't, they finally sent it back, right? They sent it back, I think Thursday afternoon or something like that. And so then he says, okay. So then he wires them the funds. He says he wires the funds. So it's Friday morning, he wires the funds. The guy, says, well, I'm going to come Saturday to get the car, right? So we've been jerking around with this shipper. So this is, by the way, a month into the whole process. I had the car. We had agreed to the $65,000. I dropped it off at LHT, so we agreed on like a Sunday. I dropped it off on Monday, had the car back on Wednesday. We had scheduled the shipper. It was supposed to be Thursday. Well, this is a month after that, right? Or 3 weeks after that. So I'm just assuming this isn't going to happen, right? And so this whole Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing is 3 weeks after we had already sort of worked this stuff all out. So you can see, spidey senses are tingling. So we, now we're crunch time because the guy reschedules, the shipper guy, this goofball shipper guy says, well, I'll be there Saturday. Can I be there Saturday? No. Actually, it went like this. The shipper guy calls me, so the guy that's buying the car calls me or says me or texts me or message me on Friday morning. All right, the money's been sent. I get a call from the shipper like 5 minutes later. All right, I'm coming to get the car. I'm like, okay, can I come get the car now? And I'm like, that seems kind of shady. And so I say, well, no, because I don't have the money. He says, okay, well, what about this evening? And so I said, well, if I have the money, then sure. And so the money doesn't show up, and then I get $45,000. I'm like, okay, sweet. So the guy sends me the snapshot of his account. Again, still no Fed reference number, but the wire comes through for $45,000. And so I'm at the gym. It's 3 p.m. And then I'm done at 4 p.m., 4:30 p.m., 5:30 p.m. Still no money. 6:30 p.m. no money. And then I get an email in my junk box, and the email says it's from Bank of America transfers.bankofamericatransfers.com. And it says, congratulations, your Chase bank account has just received $20,000 in actually it was the original wire was $43,000. This was $22,000. And your $22,000, thank you very much. And and then it says on behalf of Bank of America Transfers team, and then it has the guy's name underneath. And I'm like, well, that seems super shady. I've worked for a bank and I've never seen anything like that. And so then and why did it show up in my junk box? And so then I Google Bank of America transfers at bankofamericatransfers.com, and sure enough, it's scam. So I don't know. I don't want to blame the guy for trying to scam. Maybe it was a coincidence. But I think what he was trying to do was do one of these things where you just, I don't freaking know. I don't want to. I'm just assuming that he didn't do this, and it was just a coincidence that I got this, shady email. But I texted him. I said, bro, the guy wants to come get the car, but I don't have the 22 grand, and but I did get a shady email from Bank of America, and then 3.5 minutes later, boom, I get a wire that posts for 22 grand in my Chase account. So okay, sweet, okay, I got it. So then the guy calls on Friday, and then I can't make it. And then Saturday I can't make it, and then Sunday he finally comes and gets the car. We would scheduled it. He was supposed to come on Saturday, and then Saturday morning I freaked out, or Friday night I freaked out and said, "Oh my gosh, wires can be recalled." I was always under the impression that a wire was permanent, right? Once a wire is sent, that person's out the money. But no, a wire can be recalled with really very little recourse. So it could be recalled from the account. So, not that they could get any of the money out of the account. And again, my spidey sensors are tingling. I want to think that this was all me making this crap up. The dude was good to go. Other than this, it led me nothing. There was nothing that really led me, other than the timing that it took. It led me nothing to believe that anything was amiss. I mean, I'm selling this car for 65 grand. Is this too good to be true? I don't think so, but. Who knows? But anyway, this is what I'm thinking at the time, and so I rushed to Chase. Now this is my Obsessed Garage Capital account, right? Everything's going in and out of this account. I have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in this account. And so then I panic, and I say, oh my gosh, I'm going to freaking close this account. I guess a wire, the only thing that could be recalled from the account is the money that was sent, but I don't want to put this car in a truck, and then 65 grand gets yanked out of my account. So I went to Chase and closed the account, transferred all his money out of the account, right? So I transfer the money out of the account, car gets picked up on Saturday, everything's good, right? So crisis averted. I should have not worried about any of this crap because it really wasn't a big deal. Everything worked out. But, the moral of this story is that this is how this stuff can go, right? You don't know the person. They're across the country. They don't know you. Somebody's always putting something up first at risk. He got the title first. I was at risk. Then I got the money second. He was at risk. Then he got the car. And we have the wiring, and we have the whole story of the fake emails, and who the heck knows what's going on. And and then we have the shipper, and then we have the pallet of stuff that I have to ship after the fact because they don't pick it up, and then I don't get paid for it. And you have this whole rigmarole of this, money back and forth, this whole goofy situation, right? And I mean, it's just the way it can go. This is the way it goes now. Luckily, he got the car. The car's great. I got the money. Everything's great. I'm airing out the dirty laundry here because this is what I do. But the idea of just, selling your expensive car is not as simple as people make it out to be. So in my world, I walk into the Ford dealership. I say, here's the title. And here's the car. They look over the car. They do the title search. They then give me the new car. They do the title work for me, and a plate shows up at my house, and a registration is printed right then and there, and I get a tax credit for the trade-in, and it takes an hour, as long as they're not trying to sell me some Xylon for the paint or some other crap, right? I usually up front make sure that I don't have to hear that pitch. So, which do you choose to do? So, and then you're assuming you're going to be able to sell the car for 6% more than what depending on what your state sales tax is, you're assuming you're going to be able to sell it for more than what you could have, private party, than what you could have traded it for with a tax credit. Because again, most states, I trade in a $100,000 car, I save, and I buy a $100,000 car, it costs me nothing in tax. If I wanted to have that same zero cost transaction, I would need to sell it for $106,000 private party, and then I would pay $100,000 plus $6,000 tax if I were to buy a new car and it didn't have the trade-in credit. So you'd have to sell it for $6,000 more. And I get what people are saying. The argument for me is that I've been documenting and sharing, and the cars are well maintained and it's worth something more. But a lot of times, let's say that I could have sold it for $8,000 more. That $2,000 is not worth the risk, the pain, because it's a very real possibility I was out 22 G's. And I think maybe the thought process was, let's just float it out there, and just kind of like the whole shipping thing. Let me just pretend like I sent the 22. Let's see if we can get the car for $43,000, and then we'll just play dumb, like, oh, I sent you the money. And look, I sent it. Here's the email, and then I'm hammering him trying to get the money, and then he's gone, right? I hope that wasn't the case, but it sure, I wasn't born yesterday. I'm not an idiot. It probably doesn't help that I was in finance for years and have seen lots of shady stuff, or lots of fraudulent attempts that we had lots of training on that kind of stuff, what to look for. So, the moral of the story here is that it's not as simple as you walk into a Walmart parking lot, you change cash, and everybody walks away happy. Car and cash in hand, right? Car and title, and then cash in hand of the second party. It doesn't work that way. Now, if it's somebody and it's somebody local, and you can kind of go to the bank together. The other scenario that I didn't pose in here is, what if you had a loan on the car? That does make it a little bit less risky transaction for both parties. And that, let's say I had a $50,000 loan on the car, the guy wires $65,000 to the bank. The bank sends him the title, and then I get the $15,000 after the loan is paid, right? So there's a little less risk in that transaction, and the bank becomes the escrow agent. They can't hold on to the money, right? Other than maybe you giving fake bank account numbers and things like that. So there's a little less risk in that transaction, believe it or not, when you have a loan on the thing. And there's probably some stuff that I don't know about that some of you are gonna comment in the video or shoot me a message on. But to me, convenience is worth something. Especially if your time is worth something, right? So convenience and time have a value to me. I don't want to waste money. I don't want to come across as a money waster. I'm not frugal, but I'm intelligent about my money. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in the position I am. I do plan, and I do like to save, and I do not like to waste money. But I have a philosophy that if I don't obsess over that, or let's say if I'm a good steward with it, and I'm not stingy with it, then I'll be rewarded on the back end, right? There will be a residual effect to that, and maybe that's a stupid way to live, but I feel like if let's say I tip well, then somebody's gonna buy something from me, and balance the universe. That's just my mentality, and plus I don't like to haggle, and I'm a pretty passive dude, so. Anyway, $2,000 in a $100,000 transaction difference, or a $60,000 whatever $1,000 transaction is not worth the pain of the potential of losing $65,000, or in this case $22,000. And so that's why I have a tendency to prefer to trade. And there are lots of services I'm sure that you could employ in this. Where you could hire an escrow agent, or you can have a bank involved, or you can meet somewhere, or get on a plane or something like that, or follow the car, or drive the car, or do something. But to me, this is the real, this is how this stuff goes. And so, good news, yes, I sold my S2000. Yes, I was able to build the car. Yes, I was able to do it without losing. I didn't really lose much at all. I mean, was it worth a few $1,000 it cost me to the net difference in buying the car and building the car and having fun with the car and then sharing the car and then finding some of you that are now watching this. That was never my intent. I just wanted the thing. But the residual benefit to me was that I got to connect with some other people that now are listening to this or watching this podcast. So that's I think a good thing. So anyway, the title of the video is appropriate. Yes, I did sell the car for $65,000. No, I'm not making it up. There's no benefit to me making it up. And hopefully we're setting a new precedent. I think there was another CR S2000 that sold for $80,000. And yes, sometimes if done right, aftermarket parts do have a value. And generally that's not always the case because a lot of times those things are very personal or personal preferences. I like to think that a lot of the parts I'd chosen were parts that many would choose. In worst case scenario, let's say he didn't like the color of the wheels, he could put the wheels up for sale and then buy whatever wheels he wanted, and that's a net gain because he got all the OE CR parts and he could sell those if he wanted to. So anyway, that's the story. That's why I do it that way. I hope that's helpful to some of you who are in the process of buying or selling a car. Know that there are risks on both sides. If you're a younger guy that hasn't dealt with this in the past, maybe this is helpful. If you're an older guy and have done it 100 times and you're thinking I'm an idiot, that's cool too. But that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So anyway, more stuff like this coming up. Let's see, what do I have on the podcast? I want to talk a lot about the my best and what that means. So I'm gonna have a podcast talking about that, and how I got water spots on the WRX and how that really stressed me out, and how I chose to share that I got water spots on the newly corrected and protected car that I said wouldn't get water spots, and now I have water spots. So the universe is telling me to shut my mouth and stop making declarative statements. And stop fighting the good fight that wax is not dead. That it does have an application and that it's not always an end-all be-all. The coatings are the way to go, especially I freaking hate professional coatings. It's freaking stupid. I don't think it's smart from a business perspective in that wouldn't you rather sell more of your coatings, so get rid of the whole professional crap. There are a lot less professionals than there are people. And so just make a really good coating and sell it to everybody. And I know that's not a very popular opinion to have, but that's what I would like to see, and it's probably because I'm not a professional. Now I could probably, because I'm a semi-professional now, I could probably convince or go get certified and convince them to give me the coating for my car. But now from a business perspective, that doesn't do me any good to be using a coating that you can't get. And so I want to go to companies to get a great product and have it be their best. Stop coming out with 15 coatings. Just make one and make it the best and let everybody buy it. And I think that's and then you'll make more money and you'll be more successful. I mean, it seems so simple to me instead of creating all of this goofy professional network crap. But I get that's a bread and butter of a lot of companies, and more power to them, whatever. But I'm gonna fight the good fight to get us wannabes great products too, and get us the best option from companies instead of having this exclusive stuff. So anyway, more stuff coming on the podcast, more stuff on the YouTube channel, and more on the membership program that I'm thinking about doing, and how I think I'm going to do it a little differently than what you're accustomed to, and why that would be of value to you. A lot of people thought I was talking about shutting down making videos on YouTube. No. I was talking about adding some specific content to a membership program on my website rather than doing I don't know, shut the YouTube channel down. That'll be stupid. That's where everybody comes from. That's the top of how we all connect. So anyway, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more crazy. I got more of it. foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor